Welcome to the Success Pick and Mix podcast. I'm your host, Nicky Raby, a professional pick and mixer. I'm a personal brand coach, a speaker, an actor, a creator, and a podcaster. I'm on a mission to help you find and create your version of success. Your pick and mix of life and business on your terms. A blend that complements your personality, your goals, and your circumstances. Since 2018, I've been sharing interviews and mini episodes to help you unlock your next step, to make it real and make it happen. Round here, we dream big. We go for the ideal version. We talk about money and make moves our future selves would be proud of. This podcast is free and available for you whenever you need it. So do rate, review, and subscribe for new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices and availability, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests. Now, on to today's episode. In today's episode, I'm talking to Zoe Blaskey, who is the founder of Motherkind, which started after struggling with the pressures of modern mum life and wanted to help other mums who may be feeling the same. Zoe is a coach, meditation teacher, and pregnancy yoga teacher. Through Motherkind, she runs events, hosts retreats and workshops, works one-to-one with mums, and hosts the popular The Motherkind podcast, which features guests like Marianne Williamson and Julie Montague. And me, I'm coming up soon. As well as running Motherkind, Zoe is a successful brand and marketing consultant. I hope you enjoy the episode. Today I'm talking to Zoe from Motherkind. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me here.
You're welcome. So, firstly, I'd like to find out about you, what you do, Motherkind. Give me a little brief summary.
So, Motherkind is a new project that I'm working on. I launched it about 4 months ago, so it's still tiny little newborn.
Swaddled in a cradle.
Yeah, exactly. So I really want it to be a platform, a community for mums to be able to talk really openly about some of the pressures and challenges of what it means to be a mum today and provide some solutions for that.
And what prompted you to create it?
So, like so many things, it was really a need that I had that I couldn't see out there. So I'll just share a little bit about my background. About 10 years ago, I came into 12-step recovery because of some challenges that I was having in my life. And through that process, I became incredibly passionate, to the point of obsessive maybe, about self-development, about what happens when we go inwards, what happens when we learn what our patterns are, and how we can use those to transform the experience of our day-to-day lives. And I became really interested in it. And at the time I was working in corporate life, so I've done sort of big marketing jobs at BMW and Hiscox Insurance and City and Guilds, which is an education charity. And I always in the back of my mind thought I would love to do something in the self-development, coaching, spirituality world. Outside of work, it was my absolute passion. I would go on every retreat, every workshop, pre-mum life, obviously, when I had a lot of time. I would read every book. I'd go to every talk. It was my deep calling in a way. So I trained as a coach alongside one of my corporate jobs that I was doing, and I started doing some career coaching. And because I thought that'd be a really natural fit from my corporate life, and I'd always loved coaching. I had big teams, and I always had feedback that I was really good at that element of the job. But it never really gelled with me. And I just thought I had that trust, I developed a trust in life. And I thought, well, if this isn't gelling, it's obviously not my path.
Yeah.
So I then sort of put that down and I started consulting. So I started working for myself, and I thought I'm just going to do this until I find my path. And I never thought that motherhood would give me this. I never dreamt it. And but I continued doing lots of trainings. So I trained when I was pregnant in Kundalini yoga, which is a meditative sort of yoga. And I did lots and lots of little trainings in tools such as EFT and meditation and mindfulness. And I became a mum. And I sort of thought that from a mental health perspective and a self-care perspective, I would be fine because of the journey that I'd
And that's
been
what
on.
people tell you.
Yeah. And I really didn't think about it. I was very focused on my birth because I chose to have a home birth. So I really doubled down on, the hypnobirthing and the meditation and the relaxation and the yoga. I mean, I was a bit of a ninja about the whole thing. And I really didn't think about how I was going to deal with the pressures from a mental health, from a self-care perspective. And so I had Jessie. I had a wonderful birth, which I'm deeply grateful for. And I totally lost focus on me, which I think is a very natural thing to do when you've got a gorgeous, beautiful little newborn that needs all that time and attention. But I let my meditation drop, and I had incredibly strong meditation practice, and I simply stopped doing it. I was out of routine. You know what it's like with a new baby. I
don't know what day it is.
Don't know what day it is, let alone have I done some meditation. I mean, it wasn't even on my radar. I stopped going to as many recovery meetings. I'd been doing 3 recovery meetings regularly a week for about 10 years by the time I had Jessie. And because of, again, I was feeding, I couldn't get out, that stopped. I stopped journaling, which is one of my absolute go-to tools. Again, time pressure. And slowly, I noticed after about 6 months, all of my stuff came up. So I was starting to feel anxious, really anxious. I was starting to get locked into comparison about how I was as a mum. I was starting to feel less than, insecure, bitchy, highly judgmental. And one day the penny dropped for me, and I realised that actually the lack of attention on myself and dropping all the things that I knew I needed to do to keep myself peaceful and happy and positive, I had stopped doing. And as a result, I was back in this place at the time when I least needed to be in that place, because I had all the pressures of also being a mum. So I set about trying to figure out, how am I going to fit in all these things that I know I have to do with having a 6-month-old? And I started looking around for resources and inspiration and support online, which was my main sort of access portal at that point.
Because you're scrolling in the middle of the night.
Exactly. And I didn't really find it. I found lots of conversation about how hard it was, which was great because it made me feel I wasn't alone with it. Yes. But I didn't find anyone talking overtly about what the solution might be. And I thought maybe I could provide a voice of the solution. I've got all these trainings. I know what to do. Maybe I could talk about my journey. Maybe I could share some of the tools. Maybe I could teach meditation to mums, which I know's had a massive impact on my life. So that's really where it was born out of, was my own challenge, and a need that I thought maybe other mums have this, and that I couldn't see anything. Yeah.
What does meditation do for you? How have you found that journey and that relationship?
Yeah, so I think, sometimes the word meditation can really put people off. I think people have this vision of sort of a yogi in a cave and we have to sit cross-legged and omming. Yeah, and that's not really my type of meditation, although I have done lots of that when I wasn't a mum, I have to say. I think for me, what meditation has given me is a deep understanding of the nature of my mind. So I know now where my mind will go, what my inner critic, we all have one. I know what things are likely to get thrown at me. And what meditation's given me, and a mindfulness, or whatever we want to call it, is really an ability to step back from that,
right,
to detach from it. So if I think about my life before I knew that, I would hook into every time my voice said to me, that person doesn't like you, you're not good enough, that person on Instagram's got it sorted and you're a piece of shit, you're not a good enough mum for your baby, whatever was I would believe that, and then that would then hook into another thought. Remember the time when that person did tell you weren't good enough? Because that's the way that our minds work, right?
Yeah. So they're looking for new information and new evidence. And...
Yeah. Our minds are like computers. If we give them a question, they'll give us an answer, right? So why am I not good enough? You'll get an answer. So what meditation's really given me, and it's a daily practice, it's understanding my mind. So really, and the freedom, people talk about the freedom they find through meditation, and I used to find that really weird. I'd be like, freedom from what are they on about?
Yeah.
But I've experienced that, because when I can unhook from the negativity and the inner critic, some people call it ego, whatever you choose to call it, monkey on your shoulder, some people say, there is immense freedom.
Yes.
And I have experienced true peace, which, given, where I was before is miraculous. And of course, when I'm able to be present and not totally wrapped up in my thoughts, sometimes positive, that's when I experience life as it is. And I think that's what it's about, really.
Especially life with a newborn is ever-changing. As soon as you feel like you've got something or something's going well, another thing will come into the mix and you're like, oh, now we're playing with that as well. So I guess what were the clues that you thought, okay, I actually need to do this? Because I know there's a lot of talk about, I've had so many ideas, or I would love to start a business or a project. How did you have that confirmation for yourself of, okay, I actually need to do this?
Yeah, it's a really good question, because it's a bit of a joke amongst my friends and family, because I do have about 2 new business ideas a week. I'm incredibly creative and entrepreneurial. You've got so much free
time on your hands.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so easy.
So I guess to start with, when I thought about this, I thought maybe this is just another idea, because I have so many, which I now know is a really good thing. I just needed to channel them. What really happened was I totally believe in being guided by something bigger than me, which sounds really woo-woo, but actually it isn't. I think life is always opening doors for us, shutting doors for us, giving us little breadcrumbs to follow. They're always there. It's just whether we're looking for them or not.
And that can be something very basic of, I just don't get a good feeling about that person, or I don't feel like we're aligned, or something's telling me, or I've got stomachache when I have this conversation, and it shows up in many different ways, doesn't it?
You're absolutely right. So it's about tuning into that. So I had this idea, and I didn't call it Motherkind then, it was this idea about well-being for mums. And I just asked for a bit of guidance, and I said to life, to universe, it really doesn't matter what we call it. I said, I wonder if this is right for me, and help me to be guided if this is the right path. And what happened was unbelievable course of events, where every time I doubted or questioned myself, something very overt would happen that pushed me and told me, this is the right path and this is needed. So one example which I'll give you, I was having a real wobble with it, about even starting to think about it. So this was a year ago, and it's only 4 months old. So you can see the amount of time and procrastination it took me to get live. And I was thinking, I don't even know I'm thinking about this. I don't know if this is needed, and who am I, and all, a lot of self-doubt was creeping in. And I went to a dinner with lots of Insta mums, and it was great. And I happened to sit next to Clemmy Telford, who is a huge mum blogger and a friend of a friend. And we were asked at this dinner to share something that we were going to affirm to ourselves. And I said that I wanted to focus on how things felt over how they looked, which is how I try and live my life. And I left that dinner and I didn't think anything else of it. And in January, so the year 2017 that I desperately wanted to launch Motherkind as it now is, but was wobbling. And I saw that Clemmy, who has, incredible amount of followers and she's incredible, she had shared what I'd said. And she had said, she said that I was wise and that it had resonated with her and lots of others. And that, I just took that. I really grabbed onto it and I thought, this is something, nudging me in this direction. So I just kept going. And every time that I would have a wobble, something unbelievable, to the point of getting Marianne Williamson as my first podcast guest, something unbelievable would happen. And, I'd heard about flow. I'd read about it a lot. I had never experienced it from a business perspective, or a project perspective. And with Motherkind, I've absolutely experienced that, where things have flowed. So that's how I know that it's the right path.
I would love to talk about flow, actually, because it's a reference that I use a lot. And I guess training as an actor, I'm very in touch with my body because I have to know myself well before I work on a character. I have to connect with the parts of me that feel more like this kind of thing. And finding flow in my business and my life is something that I'm always checking in with, whether I'm on, whether I'm off, whether I'm kind of got one foot in or whatever it might be. And also when opportunities come along, how do you do that for you? What does it mean? And how do you get back on track when you feel like you've gone slightly off flow?
Yeah. So I think there's two big things. The first one that we've already talked about is getting to know my mind. Because when I'm stuck in my head, and you've been talking about getting into the body a lot, when I'm stuck in my head, there really is no flow, because I'm going to try and manage and control. And when I'm trying to manage and control, that blocks flow. You can't have flow and be trying to control. So that's the second thing that helps me get flow is putting in the actions, doing the footwork, as we call it in the recovery movement, and then handing over the results and just trusting that, if I send that email and I don't get a response, I just trust. Yeah. I'm not meant to. And I'll go on to the next thing. Yeah. What I won't do is resend that 30 times because that's not flow. That's me trying to control. So I'll let it go. And then, if something comes back to me, I will just trust. And I think that's where that's really been the big difference with Motherkind as opposed to maybe some of my corporate is that I'm really able to just trust in the journey of it and trust in the flow of it.
How do you trust if you're not getting the results as quickly as you want?
Yeah.
I don't know if you know the answer and I don't know if I do, but so we touched on comparison, and I guess in the social media, digital world, we know a lot about people's lives. We know the kind of houses that they live in. We know what they have for breakfast. We know what they're doing. And sometimes people talk about money or fancy holidays or whatever it might be. And so, especially for my clients who are starting businesses, they may be in that early stage of, it's not happening quick enough, or I spent all this time creating this one thing and nobody read it, apart from my mum and my cat, and that was it. So what sort of practical tools do you use to keep trusting?
Yeah, I really get that, and I think it's such a good question, and I think my response is quite spiritual, and I guess because it has to be, because we're so conditioned that to want more and more and more and more. And I think, it's such a big subject, I know, and it's a big thing to talk about, but sometimes the freedom in life comes from the acceptance that the peace and the happiness we're craving, it doesn't come from getting more and more and more and more and more. So I think the first practical tool is being grateful for what we've already got.
Yeah.
So energetically, if we're not appreciating what we've got, it's really difficult for us to get more. So that's the first thing. The second thing I'd say is that sometimes we get what we need and not what we want.
The lesson.
The lessons, right? So another effing growth opportunity,
yes,
as I like to call them. So we may really want to sell out that event. We might have put it on our vision board. You know, we might have done all the right things, but actually we sell, as you say, 2 tickets. Now, I think with an example like that, we are at a crossroads. And I think we have an opportunity to step into frustration, anger even, self-criticism, thinking that we're failures, which, you know, is so easy to do. In a lot of ways, that's how we've been conditioned. I think the other way, and it's definitely what I try and do, not immediately, but within, 24, 48 hours, is think, what's the lesson here? And look within for that lesson. So I will ask myself questions. This is why journaling is so important in business and personal life. What energy was I bringing to that event? Was I totally aligned with it? What could the lesson be here?
Yes.
And it might be anything. But I think, I deeply believe through my own experiences and those of others that life always gives us what we need to grow.
Yeah.
It isn't always pretty.
The terrible boyfriends.
Right.
The crop top that we wore in the 90s.
The kid we can't control.
Yeah.
All of it. It's all here to help us grow. And I think, it's a misconception that we can put things on our vision board and they will come to us because we have to do the work. And that's why I think, it's not easy, this stuff. It's easier to go to the anger and the victim and the denial. It's easier. But long term, I don't think it is. I think it's harder to live like that.
And life is not supposed to be perfect every step of the way, because sometimes in ugly moments or in difficult times, you come out the other side and you have that strength and you have that resilience that you didn't know that you had. And I know that we've talked about what motherhood has done for us both. And I think it's given me a certain lioness quality that I didn't know necessarily that I had. And it's been quite an interesting energy to tap into, and I use it much more now, and I have much more of a purpose and a focus. So I guess now you have become a mum and you've got clear on your idea and you've launched it, where do you want it to go, and where do you feel it's most needed, I guess?
So I think I've really tried with Motherkind to just stay in that energy of being of service. And I think maybe that's why doors are opening so quickly for me, because I genuinely, see the challenges of motherhood, and I think they're universal. I don't think it depends on who you are or how much help you've got even, because I think they're internal.
Yeah.
So I really want Motherkind to be of service in that way. I would love to create a community of strong mums who are committed to looking at this journey of motherhood in a slightly different lens. Because this, like it says in the Course of Miracles, which is, a metaphysical text that Gabby Bernstein and Marianne Williamson teach, this isn't difficult, but it is different. And I think that's really true in that, there's a lot of conversation out there about the challenges of motherhood, especially in this day and age where, like you've talked about, we've got access more than ever before. We can see what Beyonce had for breakfast, for God's sake. Like, how are we supposed to, manage this? So, there's more pressure on us than ever before. We're dealing with pressures our mums never had to deal with. We've also got more opportunity than ever before to escape from ourselves.
Yes.
We've got the world in our pocket with our mobiles. So I actually don't think there's ever been a time where this type of conversation is more needed. I also have a deep passion for generational dysfunction, looking at it, understanding it, and how we break it.
Yes.
So I would love Motherkind to really be of service and to have an impact and just to help mums. Really, that's why I started it. I started it first to help myself. which I think is where a lot of businesses start from. And then, so that's my only ambition, really. I'm really trying to stick away from, the big writing down numbers or, it's really just about coming from a place of service and helping.
It's so important, because I realise, actually, I was just thinking over my morning that I don't have my mornings of peace and quiet and slowly and just wandering into the kitchen and making tea and having that serene moment that I would really like. My partner is not a morning person, so he is that person who's literally like, right, 15 minutes, then I have to leave, go, 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 go. So often before children, I would be up by myself, and I used to really enjoy that time. And now I realise not only do I not have that time, I'm also giving that from an empty place to somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's been quite a consideration as well, and a lot of deep breaths, and I just need to have a wee quietly. I need to have a cup of tea and those basic things, I guess, as well.
You're right, it's absolutely huge. And I think when we're in that depleted place, which of course we all are, every so often, if not all the time, that's when it's so easy in that place to tap into and not be able to access that calmness, not be able to access that patience that we need. Of course, it's almost impossible. The two don't fit together. We can't give what we don't have. So, and this is another sort of motivator for starting Motherkind, is I'd read a few baby books, which actually I ended up binning, which was one of the best things that I'd done. But I got increasingly frustrated with how easy the authors would say, speak kindly to your baby. And there was absolutely no recognition often of the state that we were in, because we can't be what we're not inside.
No.
Can't give what we don't have. We can't give kindness to those around us if we're not being kind
and these
to
terms
ourselves.
Are so vague sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think we're all craving that sort of step-by-step guide, like our own parents or our school teachers or our people of the community would do. They'd hold your hand and they'd say, right, this is what's going to happen, and then we're going to do this, and you're going to be okay, because like we do with our own children, then you're going to have a snack, and then we're going to go to the park and all the rest of it. And so because we're navigating this landscape, sometimes completely without a map and not really knowing how we're supposed to deal with this, and because everybody online seems to have it all figured out, which of course they don't, it's, nobody's perfect by any means, we do need the tools to navigate.
That's what's so hard about it, is I think, often a lot of the mums that I work with, it'll be the first time that they've had to think about their control. Because, a lot of the mums out there, not everyone, but, have had big successful jobs, or have travelled, or have, really been the masters of their own destiny and used control as a way to feel safe, maybe.
Yes.
As a way to feel validated in the world.
Yeah.
Might have used busyness as a way to feel validated. And suddenly, not only are we emotionally depleted, exhausted, as you talk about, we're learning every single day what we're doing, we also are being faced with all of our stuff.
Yes.
And that, if you put that together, sometimes I think it's a miracle we even can get up in the morning.
Yeah.
So that's so the tools that I teach and what Motherkind's about is some of the really simple things that we can do day to day. And then some of, through my one-to-one coaching, some of the bigger things that we need to look at, such as expectations or control or fear, which is a massive one, or anxiety. And actually what I find most of the time is that those things have been ever present through someone's life.
Yes.
They've just been managing them, and actually throw a newborn or
it's like a bad spot that comes to the surface, isn't it? And you have to clear all that gunk out before you can see the beautiful clear skin at the end of it.
Unfortunately, the narrative around motherhood at the moment is that there's a solution for that, which is gin and wine.
Yes.
which I'm not anti. I'm absolutely not anti it, but I'm totally sober, so I have to find other tools.
Yes.
And I actually think, it's an opportunity to work with this stuff, like you say. Let it come out. Let's process it. Let's look at what's going on and release it. You know, what we push down, much as we don't want to hear it, and I know back in the day I did not want to hear this, it will come out sideways.
Yes. And you have to just let that process move sometimes and be willing to do that. I know we've spoken on your podcast earlier about working through these things that you were really not expecting that this is going to be the sort of thing. And I think sometimes as new mums, we have all of these things that are building up in our heads. So something has to come out because we can't contain all of this information. So I guess get support and communicate with those around you. And it's okay not to be okay all of the time, and to make some sort of delicious organic quinoa dessert. Probably dessert. That's the pressure, isn't it, that we should be creating. And it's okay. You know, if you need to put your pajamas on at 2 PM and get into bed with your baby, do it.
Yeah, I always say do what you've got to do. Yeah. Which I think is just really freeing.
Yeah.
And social media is a massive one with the comparison. But again, you know, letting go of that is, you know, we really have to look at what's going on with ourselves and why we're doing that. I think sometimes, especially in our world, you know, in the sort of self-development world, things can be made to look very easy.
Yes.
Just stop comparing.
Yeah.
Well, that's...
Just turn your computer off.
In my experience, a lot of these things are quite deep-rooted.
Yeah.
Not to say there aren't little tricks, of course there are, but if we really want to make some big transformations to a more peaceful, happier, freer life, you know, which I guess is what we all want, we do have to do some work around that.
Yeah, and things can take over. Like, imagine when you were a kid or you're a teenager and you were waiting, you know, to see if a boy would phone, and it would just be like, is he going to phone? Is it, maybe he'll phone at 6:05 because, you know, it's free after 6 back in the day, that you would be consumed with all those thoughts of, you know, what is that going to happen? And if we're not careful, that inner critic can take that place of thought and insecurity, and scary.
Yeah.
So what are your daily essentials now, moving forward? Your little one is 2 as well. What really helps you practically on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so this has been a real trial and error, which is, you know, I've really learned through I was my first client, I guess, with Motherkind. Because I used to do an awful lot, as I've shared, you know, pre-motherhood. Now there just is not the time. So I've boiled it down to just 2 things, which I am non-negotiable on. First one is meditation.
Yes.
And I will do at least 10 minutes a day, whatever is happening.
Brilliant.
Not necessarily sitting, although I do tend to get to that, but I'll make sure I do 10 minutes of something. Sometimes it might be a guided meditation, which I find incredibly helpful. Sometimes it might be mindfulness. Yeah. So pushing a buggy, 10 minutes, I will make sure that I'm very focused in the moment. And the second one is journaling. So
I love it too. It's so good, isn't it?
Journaling
is right way to do it. You can just write.
I think it's one of the most sort of undervalued tools that we've got. And I think it doesn't really matter how much we write or what we write about. In my experience, the truth will always be revealed. Yeah. Although I've never sat down to journal and not got some insight or comfort from it. And a lot of people have a lot of resistance to it. Massive resistance. Which I really get, because I did before I sort of started building it into my daily practice as well. But yeah, those are the 2 things that I say, and it doesn't have to take long. That journaling can be a voice note even on your WhatsApp. Yeah. If you don't have time with a pen and a paper.
Say it out loud. Just get it out of your head.
There's so much power in just writing it down. You don't need to share it. You can screw it up and put it in the bin if you don't want your husband to read it.
Because they might be like, what?
Yeah, she's mental.
Yes.
God, if anyone read my journaling, I think I'd be committed. So I think just getting it out is incredibly powerful. And I think that journaling, coupled with getting to know our minds, is the 2 things that just make... And still, you know, I teach meditation. I am still blown away by how powerful it is. Yeah. In my own life. Sometimes I can't believe it. Like, it's
like a little magic sauce, isn't it?
I'm like, how is it? Well, apparently if meditation was a drug, it would be unethical that it wasn't prescribed, because it is so effective.
Yeah. I'm just dipping my toe in the water with it at the moment, so I'm interested to get to know more. But I'm such a visual person, so it really helps me to get clear on that vision and where I'm going and what I'm not doing, and it's really good.
Yeah, I think it's just... the thing I would say about it is just start.
Yeah.
That's what I say. And be, I always say, don't do what I say, just experience it for yourself. And I haven't really had anyone who's not experienced some sort of shift or a lighter mood or feeling more grateful or more peaceful or less snappy, which is a massive one I hear all the time, less reactive. And that makes total sense that we're less reactive, because we slightly detach from our minds.
We do.
So that's how it works. I'm just a massive, flag waving lunatic about the power of 10 minutes just sat quietly with ourselves. I don't actually think there's a group who need it more than mums.
So true.
Because we've got every minute of every day opportunities to step into overwhelm, stress, reaction, pressure, any of it. It is on us. There's no escape. There's no escape from a raging 2-year-old. I don't think there's anyone that needs it more than us.
And also, when they are being a raging 2-year-old and you're having a horrendous day, it just seems to get worse sometimes, because they can feel it as well. And so just to finish, are there any books that have been really useful, and any books that might work really well in terms of audio? Because I know I can feel a bit intimidated by the stack of books that are next to my bed, and I think, when am I ever going to have time to those? But actually having them in my ears has made everything much better.
So I've got 2 tips, and then I'll talk about, because I'm the same. I'm an avid reader. I read about a book a week, and I do a lot of it on Audible. Because I can be pushing the buggy or doing the washing, and it can be in the background.
And it's good for our kids to hear this stuff as well. I'm sure they're absorbing it all.
Yeah. Jesse's probably going to, God knows, she's probably going to go and want to be in a cave, the amount of deeply spiritual text she listens to.
Oscar will be climbing a mountain, or he'll be dressing up as Mr. Tumble. We'll have to see which way it's going to go.
Time will tell.
I hope the first one, really.
So that's my first thing is Audible is our friend as mums, the same sort of bracket as podcast. The second thing, which is a relatively new thing for me, is Blink. So Blink is an app which summarises non-fiction books, and you can listen to it in audio or written. It takes about 10 minutes of audio for a book. Now, I wouldn't say that you can do that and absorb all the lessons, but what it's great for is, if you're anything like me, I've got a list of 20 books.
Yeah.
So I'll look at them on Blink and I'll think, that one really resonates with me, the summary of it, and then I will go and read the long version. So it's a great sifter for what's going to work best. And of course, you've got the benefit of you do absorb the summaries as well. So those are my sort of 2 tips.
Without time, like if I'm 3 pages in and I'm not getting it, there's no point.
Exactly. So Audible and Blink are my 2 sort of hacks, I guess. And then the books that have made the biggest difference, I think there's one author who's had the most profound impact on my parenting journey to date, and that is Dr. Shefali Tusbury. And I'm actually training with her at the moment, which is an unbelievable opportunity. So she's written 2 books.
The Conscious Parent?
You know it.
Yeah, I haven't read it, but I've heard amazing things.
And the second one is called The Awakened Family. So her books have really been, I mean, there are a lot of the stuff that I already believed in and knew to be true around she really blends East and West. So she is a doctor of clinical psychology. She is also deeply steeped in understanding about meditation and thinking about something bigger than ourselves in our lives. And she puts those 2 together, and she talks about them in context of motherhood and raising children. So when I found it, I literally felt like someone... I
hear the message!
Yeah, I was so excited. And so now I'm training with her. That's how big a fan I am.
Wow.
But I always recommend one of those 2 books rather than any book about, like you talked about, routines or babies, because what the books teaches you is how to connect to yourself through the experience.
Yeah. Because or you can only actually do that yourself. It's kind of like driving a car. You don't know what it's like to drive on a motorway until you're there and you're on that North Circular or the, M25 or whatever, and you're feeling all of those cars in all of the lanes. You don't know that feeling until you do it. And you have to be willing to step into that crazy place, because the other side of it is brilliant. Well, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
So good.
My first ever podcast on the other side of the mic. So that was...
What a treat. And if people want to find out more about Motherkind, where should they come?
So Instagram is where I do most of my sharing and chatting and musings and meanderings, at motherkind.co. I also have my own podcast called the Motherkind Podcast, where I interview amazing wellbeing teachers about the challenges of motherhood and what we can do.
Go and subscribe. It's brilliant.
Thank you very much. So that's on iTunes. And I also run lots of events and workshops, and I do lots of one-on-one work with mums, which is all on my website, motherkind.co.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody go and see Zoe and everything she's doing, and I will see you soon. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you haven't already, feel free to rate, review and subscribe for all the brand new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices, availability or just to have a chat with me, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you as always for spending some time with me and my guests, and I'll see you next time.